The air bit with winter's teeth that morning outside Children's Mercy Hospital in Birmingham, Alabama. Not cold enough for snow, but cold enough to turn breathe into fog and numb fingertips. People rushed in and out, doctors in scrubs, parents clutching coffee cups, kids bundled in thick coats. Everyone moved fast, like they could outrun the pain that brought them there. But one person wasn't moving. A small boy sat on a flattened cardboard box near the entrance, scribbling in a battered notebook. His name was Micah Ellis, and he was 9 years old. His coat swallowed him whole, the sleeves rolled up to free his hands. One of his boots was split at the toe, held together with silver duct tape. A red beanie, frayed at the edges, barely covered his ears. He didn't beg, didn't ask for help, just sat there, watching. Most people assumed he was waiting for someone inside, maybe a sick parent, a brother or sister. Nobody asked. In a place like this, you learn not to. Across the street, a sleek black SUV idled by a fire hydrant. Inside, Jonathan Reeves gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. In the back seat, his 6-year-old daughter, Isla, sat strapped into her booster seat, her pink blanket tucked around motionless legs. 6 months ago, Isla had been a whirlwind, climbing trees, racing her cousins, laughing so hard she'd snort. Then the accident happened. Now she barely spoke. Jonathan took a deep breath, then stepped out into the cold. He unbuckled Isla, lifting her gently into his arms. She didn't wrap her legs around him anymore. She just hung there as he carried her toward the hospital doors. A voice cut through the wind. "Sir." Jonathan turned. It was the boy from the cardboard box. "I can make your daughter walk again." The words didn't sound like a joke or a scam. They didn't even sound hopeful. They sounded like a fact. Jonathan's grip on Isla tightened. What kind of cruel game was this? "That's not funny, kid." Micah didn't blink. "I wasn't joking." Jonathan should have walked away. But something, maybe the way Micah held his gaze, steady as a heartbeat, made him pause. "How?" Micah shifted on his feet. "My mom used to help people walk again. She was a physical therapist. Taught me stuff." Jonathan scoffed. "You're 9. Almost 10, Micah corrected. "And I've seen it work." For a long second, Jonathan just stared at him. Then, without another word, he turned and carried Isla inside. But the boy's words clung to him. The next day, Jonathan found himself driving to Harrington Park, a patch of grass with a rusted swing set and a cracked basketball court. He told himself this was stupid, that he was desperate, that no kid, especially not one in taped-up shoes, could do what doctors hadn't. But Isla had been quiet all morning, and when he glanced in the rear-view mirror, her eyes were wide, watching him. Micah was already there, sitting on a bench under an old oak tree. A small gym bag rested at his feet. Jonathan parked, lifted Isla into her wheelchair, and rolled her over. "You actually came," Micah said. "Yeah, well." Jonathan crossed his arms. "Show me what you got." Micah knelt in front of Isla. "Can I touch your legs?" Isla nodded. What happened next wasn't magic. No flashing lights, no miracles. Just a small boy warming rice and cloth, pressing it gently to Isla's knees, talking to her about her favorite colors, asking her to wiggle her toes. And then, "Did you feel that?" Micah asked, tapping her ankle. Isla's breath hitched. "A little." Jonathan's heart stopped. For the first time in months, hope flickered. The next Sunday, Jonathan and Isla returned to Harrington Park. This time, Micah had a new tool, a rubber band. He looped it around Isla's toes, showing her how to stretch it. "Your muscles remember," he told her. "They just need to wake up." Jonathan watched, arms crossed, trying not to let himself believe. But then, Isla's big toe twitched. Just a flicker. But it was real. Jonathan's breath caught in his throat. He looked at Micah, really looked at him. The faded jacket, the duct tape boot, the quiet determination in his eyes. "Where'd you learn all this?" Micah kept his gaze on Isla's foot. "After my mom died, I stayed at a shelter. There was a man there. Couldn't walk after construction accident. My mom used to work with him. She'd say, Bodies forget, but they don't give up. Jonathan swallowed hard. How long have you been on your own? Micah shrugged. A while. That night, Jonathan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Isla had smiled today. Actually smiled. And it wasn't because of some high-tech therapy or expensive doctor. It was because of a homeless kid with a rubber band and a warm rice pack. By the third Sunday, something had shifted. Jonathan brought a thermos of hot chocolate. Micah, surprised, took it with both hands, letting the warmth seep into his fingers before sipping. You ever think about going back to school? Jonathan asked. Micah's grip tightened on the cup. Sometimes. You're smart. You could. I don't need pity, Micah said sharply. Jonathan exhaled. It's not pity. He paused. Isla's better when you're around. Micah's shoulders relaxed. That evening, as they packed up, Jonathan hesitated, then said, You could stay with us, if you want. Micah froze. Why? Because I'm tired of seeing you sleep on cardboard. Micah stared at him for a long moment. Then, so quiet Jonathan almost missed it. Okay. The first night in Jonathan's house, Micah stood in the doorway of the guest room, staring at the bed like it might disappear. You can take a shower if you want, Jonathan said. There are clean towels and... Micah was already pulling off his boots, peeling away layers of clothes stiff with dirt. The water ran for nearly an hour. When he came out, his hair damp, wearing borrowed pajamas, Isla giggled. You look weird clean. Micah grinned, the first real unguarded smile Jonathan had seen. That night, for the first time in years, Micah Ellis slept under a roof in a real bed and didn't wake up once. Word spread fast. By the fourth Sunday, a woman with a son in leg braces showed up at Harrington Park. Then a man with his granddaughter, her arm limp from a stroke. Micah didn't turn them away. He just got to work, showing them the same stretches, the same patience. Jonathan watched as Micah kneeled in the grass, pressing a tennis ball under the stroke survivor's foot. Your brain's just lost, he told her. We're helping it find the way back. The girl's grandfather wiped his eyes. That afternoon, a local reporter snapped a photo. The next day, the headline read, The Miracle Boy of Harrington Park. Micah hated it. It's not me, he muttered. It's just what my mom taught me. But the people kept coming. Then came the bad day. Isla threw a rubber band across the room. It's not working anymore. Jonathan knelt beside her. Hey, it's okay to be frustrated. And oh, she screamed, tears streaming. I'm tired of trying. I'm tired of hoping. Micah, silent until now, walked over and picked up the rubber band. He held it out to her. You think I don't get tired? He said quietly. You think I didn't cry when my mom was sick and I couldn't do anything? Isla sniffled. But if you stop now, Micah said, the part of you that wants to walk, it might stop trying too. Jonathan held his breath. Isla wiped her nose. Then, slowly, she took the rubber band. The next Sunday, Isla moved her whole foot, for the first time. Jonathan dropped to his knees. Did you? Was that? Isla beamed. I did it. Micah, for once, didn't hide his smile. That night, Jonathan found Micah sketching in his notebook. You changed your life, he said. Micah shook his head. She's doing the work. Jonathan hesitated, then ruffled Micah's hair. Yeah, but you showed her how. For the first time, Micah didn't pull away. The air in Harrington Park hummed with something different that morning. Not just the usual chill, but a quiet electricity. Micah stood under the old oak tree, his duct-tape boots planted firmly in the grass. Around him, families had gathered, parents holding their children's hands, wheelchairs parked in a half-circle, therapists watching with folded arms. Word had spread. Today was the day. Jonathan wheeled Isla to the center of the crowd. She wore her favorite pink sneakers, the ones she hadn't been able to fill for 6 months. Micah crouched in front of her. Remember what we practiced? Isla nodded, her fingers gripping the armrests. Your legs know what to do. Micah said, You just got to trust them. Jonathan knelt beside her, his hands hovering. I've got you, baby. Micah, shook his head. Let her try. A hush fell over the park. Jonathan wheeled Isla to the center of the crowd. She wore her favorite pink sneakers, the ones she hadn't been able to fill for 6 months. Micah crouched in front of her. Remember what we practiced? Isla nodded, her fingers gripping the armrests. Your legs know what to do. Micah said, You just gotta trust them. Jonathan knelt beside her, his hands hovering. I've got you, baby. Micah shook his head. Let her try. A hush fell over the park. Jonathan wheeled Isla to the center of the crowd. She wore her favorite pink sneakers, the ones she hadn't been able to fill for 6 months. Micah crouched in front of her. Remember what we practiced? Isla nodded, her fingers gripping the armrests. Your legs know what to do. Micah said, You just gotta trust them. Jonathan knelt beside her, his hands hovering. I've got you, baby. Micah shook his head. Let her try. A hush fell over the park. Jonathan wheeled Isla to the center of the crowd. She wore her favorite pink sneakers, the ones she hadn't been able to fill for 6 months. Micah crouched in front of her. Remember what we practiced? Isla nodded, her fingers gripping the armrests. Your legs know what to do. Micah said, You just got to trust them. Jonathan knelt beside her, his hands hovering. I've got you, baby. Micah shook his head. Let her try. A hush fell over the park. Jonathan wheeled Isla to the center of the crowd. She wore her favorite pink sneakers, the ones she hadn't been able to fill for 6 months. Micah crouched in front of her. Isla nodded, her fingers gripping the armrests. Your legs know what to do. Micah said, You just got to trust them. Jonathan knelt beside her, his hands hovering. I've got you, baby. Micah shook his head. Let her try. A hush fell over the park. Isla took a deep breath. Then, with a grunt of effort, she pushed herself up. Her knees shook. Her arms trembled. But for the first time since the accident, Isla Reeves stood on her own 2 feet. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone clapped a hand over their mouth. And then she took a step, wobbly, unsteady. But a step. Jonathan's vision blurred. He didn't realize he was crying until Isla looked up at him. Her face split with the biggest grin he'd ever seen. Daddy, I'm walking. After that, everything changed. The crowd erupted not in cheers, but in something softer. Tears, hugs, a grandfather whispering, If she can do it, maybe my boy can too. Micah stood back, his hands in his pockets, watching as Jonathan swept Isla into his arms, spinning her around. Jonathan set her down and turned to Micah. You did this. Micah shook his head. Nah, she did. But Jonathan pulled him into a hug anyway. And for once, Micah didn't stiffen. He just hugged back. Weeks passed. Isla kept improving. First steps turned into strides, then into running, though Jonathan nearly had a heart attack the first time she bolted across the yard. Micah kept teaching at the park, though now he had help. A local physical therapist volunteered to work with him, and a charity donated real equipment to replace the rice packs and rubber bands. One evening, as Micah sat on the porch sketching, Jonathan handed him an envelope. What's this? Scholarship paperwork. For school, if you want. Micah stared at it. You'd really? Jonathan ruffled his hair. Kid, your family. Of course I would. On their final Sunday at Harrington Park, the crowd was bigger than ever. Kids who'd once been confined to wheelchairs now stood on the grass, holding their parent hands. Micah stood in front of them all, his voice steady. Healing isn't magic, he said. It's just not giving up. And as the sun set over the park, bathing everything in gold, Isla grabbed Micah's hand and pulled him toward the swings. Race you, she yelled, already running. Micah laughed, really laughed, and took off after her. Jonathan watched them go, his heart fuller than he'd ever thought possible. Some miracles don't come from hospitals. Some come from duct tape boots and a boy who refused to let the world stay broken.